In this video, we will complete what was narrated about the Mongol Empire. We explained in the first part about the unification of the Mongol tribes at the hands of Genghis Khan and their invasion of the lands of Asia and China. You can see it below the video. The Khwarazmian state emerged in 1017 from the Khwarazm family. At the beginning of its establishment, it was present between Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. Then it expanded at the hands of Sultan Alaeddin Muhammad Khwarazm to include Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Gibraltar, Azerbaijan, Iran, until the Khwarazmian Empire became adjacent to the Mongol Empire. This was approximately in 1219. Genghis Khan wanted there to be a trade and economic exchange with the Khwarazmian state, so he established a peace treaty with them. It continued until a trade caravan of 500 merchants from the Mongols headed to the Khwarazmian state. The Mongol merchants entered the Khwarazmian state and settled in the city of Uttara. For 3 days later, the governor of the city killed them, thinking that the Mongol merchants were spies who wanted to collect information and discover the fortresses. Genghis Khan became angry, but he sent 3 messengers to the ruler of the Khwarazmian state, requesting that the governor be tried and his money seized be returned. However, the Sultan's response was strange, as he killed one of them and humiliated the others, which led to the largest massacre in the history of Muslims. Genghis Khan immediately prepared an army of 150,000 soldiers, led by Alaeddin al-Khwarazmian. He headed to the Khwarazmian state. News of this army reached the ruler of the Khwarazmian state, so he prepared an army estimated at 70,000 soldiers and headed to Kazakhstan. There, the Mongol army met the Muslim army for the first time, and a fierce war began that lasted for 4 consecutive days. On the 4th day, Ala al-Din Khwarazmian decided to withdraw his army to the capital of the state, Khwarazmian. On the pretext of fortifying the capital, he gave Genghis Khan the opportunity to invade the entire region of Kazakhstan, and they tortured Muslims in a way that history has never witnessed. He committed mass massacres in which men and children were killed and women were ravaged. Then he headed to the city of Bukhara and entered it without resistance after its residents surrendered to him after he promised them peace. But as usual, when he entered it, he killed everyone in it and used the rest as human shields for him. Then he headed to the city of Samarkand, one of the richest Islamic cities. When he arrived there, its army refused to fight against the Mongol army. So the people of the city, who were blacksmiths, carpenters, religious scholars, and imams of mosques, each one of them, went out to defend their country. Their number was 70,000 people, so Genghis Khan killed them all. After that, he entered Samarkand with his army and killed everyone in it and committed the most horrific crimes. Samarkand was a beautiful city and one of the most beautiful Islamic cities, so Genghis Khan decided to settle there. Then Genghis Khan sent out a battalion of 20,000 soldiers from his army, whose sole goal was to reach Sultan Alaeddin Muhammad Khwarazm and kill him. They pursued him from city to city. Genghis Khan continued to expand in the Khwarazmian state until he reached the capital and overthrew it. He found the family of Sultan Ala there, so he took his mother captive, who died after that, and married the Sultan's daughters to his sons. This news reached Ala al-Din Khwarazm, so he was extremely saddened, which led to his death on an island in the Caspian Sea, leaving the rule to his son, Sultan Jalal al-Din, who possessed strength and courage. He was able to unite an army of 60,000 fighters. He continued to fight the Mongols in violent battles until a dispute arose among the ranks of his army, and it disintegrated, and Jalal al-Din was killed after continuing to confront the Mongols for years. Genghis Khan continued to expand until he reached the borders of the Abbasid state, or the Abbasid Caliphate. He had been in his war with the Khwarazmian state for about 8 years. Here, Genghis Khan decided to return to China to confront the movements, the rebellion against him, and succeeded in that. Then he returned to Mongolia, and Genghis Khan died at the age of 72 in 1227. The life of the greatest butcher known to humanity ended, the man who killed nearly 40 million people. His third son, Ogedei Khan, took over the rule after him. The Mongol Empire expanded further in Asia and also headed to Europe. The conflict with the Khwarazmian state continued for 40 years until it was completely overthrown by the leader Hulagu, who took over the leadership of the Mongol army and was able to end the assassin sect, which was located in the castle of Imut in Persia, and completely destroyed it. He ended the Khwarazmian state completely. He announced the control of the Mongol Emperor over it, and the Mongol Empire became adjacent to the Abbasid Caliphate and also close to the headquarters of the Caliphate in Baghdad. This event occurred in 1255 AD. The headquarters was the Abbasid Caliphate in Baghdad. There was an Abbasid army estimated at 200,000 soldiers, well-equipped and experienced in battles and wars. But because of the betrayal, a man named Muayyad al-Din ibn al-Alqami, who held the position of Minister of State with Hulagu, plotted and convinced Sultan al-Mutasim Billah to reduce the number of the army to only 20,000 to reduce the expenses of the state. The Sultan was weak at that time and not interested in the affairs of the state. So he responded and the army was dismantled and dismissed. Ibn al-Alqami sent to Hulagu that the army had been eliminated and only 20 soldiers remained. So Hulagu headed with his army to Baghdad. Hulagu's army arrived in Baghdad and besieged the city in 1258. The Sultan met with his ministers to discuss the matter, so Ibn al-Alqami advised him to surrender to Hulagu and send him to offer him the surrender of the city in exchange for safety. Hulagu requested the army ministers, soldiers, and battalions to be taken out without weapons. The Sultan ordered the soldiers and army ministers to go out to kill them all, and he built a tower of corpses outside the walls of Baghdad. After that, Hulagu asked him to send him the leaders of Baghdad with their families. When they went out to Hulagu, he killed them all. Then the Sultan left Baghdad with 700 people from the Abbasids, scholars and imams. He killed them all. Hulagu and the Mongols entered Baghdad, and the largest massacre in the history of Muslims occurred in the year 1258. The Mongol army continued in Baghdad for 40 days, killing, destroying, shedding blood, and destroying the entire city. The number of dead at that time reached 1,800,000. They also destroyed the library of Dar al-Hikmah, this library that contained thousands of manuscripts and scientific books. They destroyed it and threw its books into the river to the point that the color of the river water became black from the abundance of books. It is said that if the Mongols had left these books and manuscripts, our world would now look completely different from what we have. Baghdad, the capital of the Muslims and the capital of the Abbasid state, fell and the caliphate fell with it. In 1259 AD, Hulagu went out with a great army to the Levant, heading to Aleppo, whose ruler was Turan Shah Ayyubi, who refused to surrender and decided to fight the Mongol army. Indeed, the Mongol army besieged the walls of Aleppo, and a war began between them that lasted for 7 days. After that, Turan Shah decided to surrender, along with the soldiers who remained with him. Then he headed to the city of Homs, whose prince surrendered to the Mongols and entered it without resistance. Then Hulagu was able to control all the cities of the Levant and headed to Palestine and camped there to prepare for the Mamluk invasion of Egypt. At that time, Egypt was under the rule of the Mamluks, and the affairs of the state were unstable at that time. As a result of the conflicts over the rule, it was settled that Nur al-Din, who was 15 years old, would be the governor of Egypt and the ruler of the Mamluk state. But his guardian was Qutuz, because Nur al-Din was young in age. At that moment, Hulagu was preparing to enter into a war with the Mamluks, and the matter was difficult for the Mamluks. Qutuz dismissed the young prince and took over the reins of affairs. He prepared a strong army and armed it with the strongest equipment and tools. He decided to leave his army from Egypt and transfer the battle to Palestine. He headed directly to Gaza and sent out a division led by Al-Zahir Baybars to precede him to Gaza. There, Baybars met the Mongols, and a battle took place between them. Al-Zahir Baybars was destined to win, and Qutuz followed him with the rest of the army. The army gathered in the Ain Jalut plain area and camped there. At that time, Hulagu decided to leave the army under the command of Kitbuka, who was an experienced commander, and returned to Mongolia due to the death of his brother, Möngke Khan, and the problems that occurred in the capital, so he took part of the army. He headed to Mongolia, and on September 3rd, 11,260, the Mongol army led by Kitbuga met the Mamluk army led by Qutuz, and a fierce battle took place between them that lasted for hours. It was called the Battle of Ain Jalut, which was the decisive battle in the history of Muslims and the world. In it, the Muslim army was able to eliminate the entire Mongol army and annihilate them all and stop the advance of the Mongols, who had ambitions to control and conquer the world. I hope you support me with admiration and subscribing to the channel to encourage us.